Hi JC, this is a nice digital color wheel. It has the look of Lucky Charms with each primary or secondary having a different hue. Um, I'm wondering about spacing with the circles between the intermediate steps there, between say cyan and green. Could those dots be spaced a little more evenly? Now, about the painted color wheel, well, there are a couple of matters here to consider. First, you were asked to use an opaque paint such as acrylic or gouache, and it seems you've used watercolor. Also, students were asked to paint on a separate page and to cut each color shape out and fix it onto the color wheel. I guess all in all, the one concern I have is it's not absolutely clear that you've mixed the colors from the specified primaries. However, generally the wheel looks okay. Hi VA, taking a look at your digital color wheel. The primaries and secondaries are right on. With the intermediate colors, use the rainbow guide within the color picker to shift from hue to hue and choose fully saturated hues that are intermediate also. I would say this could have been helped by use of the guides or grid. Um, Also, think about maintaining a constant proportion. In other words, not stretching the shape that you use. Now, onto the painted color wheel. Well, it looks like you had a little trouble with paint being thick. Acrylic paint, for example, can be thinned with water. I'm looking for a little more variation here between, say, violet and red violet and between red and orange. Hi, Cleo. You've got the RGB values down for your primaries and secondaries in the digital color wheel. I just wonder about placement. For example, with the intermediate steps, maybe use the up, down, right, left keys when you're zoomed in to position those small shapes with even spaces between, for example, between magenta and red. Now, your painted color wheel looks pretty good. There are a couple of concerns. I'm just thinking, let's look at red violet, blue green, and yellow orange. And I think you could see that there might be room for a better interval there. And also, I'm wondering whether you were able to use cerulean for mixing your green. Very nice work here, Triana. I'd like you to double check your RGB values with yellow, green, and cyan, and check the magenta shape. It seems as though it's missing a tiny bit of color. With something like this, you could make one large shape and one small shape, and then copy and paste them repeatedly, arrange them, and then use, say, the paint bucket to color them differently according to the needs of the assignment. The painted color wheel is very neat. That's appreciated. Let's see, could there be more variation or interval between red and yellow orange? And maybe blue violet and violet could benefit from a tiny touch of white. And lastly, I'm wondering whether you were able to use cerulean for mixing your greens. Annie, this is some nice work. Looking at your digital color wheel, your RGB values with the primaries and secondaries look good. I noticed that there are a couple of violet colors that are not fully saturated. And it does appear that you've used the grid, but when I apply the grid to your image, I can see that things aren't lined up exactly, and I want to suggest that you might like to zoom in, use the up, down, right, left keys to just budge things into perfect placement for future. Now, I appreciate the fine presentation here with your painted color wheel. The only thing that stands out to me is the similarity of the violets. And I would say use a tiny touch of white to let the color show more. Whenever you're mixing, try to use the lighter color first and add the darker to it. That would help you with red violet, I think. Hi Tara, this is actually a lovely design. One thing I like to suggest is looking at the cyan there. Well, it's easy to pick that color out as a primary, secondary color. And were the other primaries and secondaries large or bold like that, they would stand out as well. When I check for perfect RGB values, with the 6 colors that are primaries and secondaries, I don't see the exact values we need. However, I do notice that the colors are fully saturated and that they're pretty much in the right place. Michelle, I'd like to applaud your work here. I noticed that you posted a draft and a revision in the case of both of the week's assignments. Let's take a look at the painted color wheel. That shows improvement over the earlier draft. It might be that between the blues and violets, the colors are perhaps too similar. And then, say, when we get red-violet next to red, there's a big jump. So in that color, there could be more red and less of the ultramarine. Now, onto the digital color wheel. Well, your RGB values are good. I'd say that this is saved at a low resolution. I am seeing effects. So when you save for web, choose high or very high. Hi, Megan. This digital color wheel looks quite good. I believe it's been revised, but if it hasn't, I'm noticing, for example, that there are a couple of greens stacked on top of each other in green, and if I click in the right place, I get the appropriate RGB value. Those two greens are so similar, I couldn't even see the one on top in Photoshop. With the painted color wheel, this is a neat, accurate work. Maybe my only suggestion would be to try a little less white in your red-violet. Alethea, I did talk about this version in a draft review, I believe, and let's see, what I was telling you there is that it seems you're following a paint color wheel. I see green opposite red, and we should have cyan there. However, you do have magenta on this color wheel, and that's a color that's not on the paint color wheel. It appears that you've created this with the help of a gradient system, and that does not really work for this assignment. You should have a solid color for each step in your digital color wheel. Looking at your painted color wheel, I appreciate the care and precision that you use there. A couple of things. Between red and yellow orange, there could be more variety in the colors, and the same with the greens. Hi Anna, taking a look at your digital color wheel. Your RGB values seem close enough to perfect. Here's a little suggestion with regard to the orientation of the intermediate colors. I'd say take one and rotate it and copy it twice for each set of threesomes. That way they can all be at precisely the same angle within that threesome set. Also, maybe take a look in questions for the professor where I talk about ways of making shapes on your own. That goes for you and other people who have used ready-made shapes. Now, onto your painted color wheel. Well, it looks to me like you used the graphic tape or some equivalent of that, and I really don't feel that it's necessary. It's just presented as an option in this case. As much as you sought to dress up your assignment with the tape, it doesn't seem like it's been entirely successful. So, let's see. The colors, though, when I sort of focus on the colors and ignore the, the black edging, I think the colors look good. I would say that your violets could use a tiny touch of white to bring out the hue.